Chapter 8 of The Crux by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Winifred Assman. A mixture. In poetry and painting and fiction we see such praise for the dawn of the day. We've long since been convinced that a sunrise must be all glorious and golden and gay. But we find there are mornings quite foggy and drear, with the clouds in a low-hanging pall, till the grey light of daylight can hardly make clear that the sun has arisen at all. Dr. Richard Hale left his brood of temporary orphans without really expecting for them any particular oversight from Andrew Dykeman, but the two were sufficiently close friends to well warrant the latter in moving over to the monastery, as Jimmy Saunders called it. Mr. Dykeman was sufficiently popular with the young men to be welcome, even if he had not had a good excuse, and when they found how super-excellent his excuse was, they wholly approved. To accommodate Miss Aurella was something. All the boys liked Miss Aurella. They speculated among themselves on her increasing youth and good looks, and even exchanged sagacious theories as to the particular acting cause. But when they found that Mr. Dykeman's visit was to make room for the installation of Mrs. St. Cloud, they were more than pleased. All the unexpressed ideals of masculine youth seemed centered in this palely graceful lady. The low, sweet voice, the delicate hands, the subtle sympathy of manner, the nameless, quiet charm of dress. Young Burns became her slave on sight. Lawson and Peters fell on the second day. Not one held out beyond the third. Even Susie's attractions paled. Her very youth became a disadvantage. She lacked that large, considering tenderness. "Fact is," Mr. Peters informed his friends rather suddenly, "young women are selfish. Naturally, of course. It takes some experience to understand a fellow." They all agreed with him. Mr. Dykeman, quiet and reserved as always, was gravely polite to the newcomer, and Mr. Ski revolved at a distance, making observations. Occasionally he paid some court to her, at which times she was cold to him, and again he devoted himself to the other ladies with his impressive air, as of one bowing low and sweeping the floor with a plumed hat. Mr. Ski's Stetson had, as a matter of fact, no sign of plumage, and his bows were of a somewhat jerky order, but his gallantry was sweeping and impressive none the less. If he remained too far away, Mrs. St. Cloud would draw him to her circle, which consisted of all the other gentlemen. There were two exceptions. Mr. James Saunders had reached the stage where any woman besides Susie was but a skirted ghost, and Morton was by this time so deeply devoted to Vivian that he probably would not have wavered even if left alone. He was not wholly a free agent, however. Adela St. Cloud had reached an age when something must be done. Her mysterious absent husband had mysteriously and absently died, and still she never breathed a word against him. But the Bible class in Bainville furnished no satisfactory material for further hopes. The place of her earlier dwelling seemed not wholly desirable now, and the West had called her. Finding herself comfortably placed in Mr. Dykeman's room, and judging from the number of his shoe trees and the quality of his remaining toilet articles that he might be considered suitable, she decided to remain in the halfway house for a season. So settled, why, for 1,000 reasons, one must keep one's hand in. There were men in plenty, from 20-year-old Archie to the uncertain decades of Mr. Ski. Idly amusing herself, she questioned that gentleman indirectly as to his age, drawing from him astounding memories of the previous century. When confronted with historic proof that the events he described were over 100 years past, he would apologize, admitting that he had no memory for dates. She owned one day with gentle candor to being 33. "That must seem quite old to a man like you, Mr. Ski. I feel very old sometimes." She lifted large eyes to him and drew her filmy scarf around her shoulders. "Your memory must be worse than mine, ma'am," he replied, "and work the same way. You've sure got 10 or 20 years added on superfluous. Now me," he shook his head, "I don't remember when I was born at all, and losing my folks so young, and the family Bible, I don't expect I ever shall. But I 'low I'm all of 97. This being palpably impossible, and as the only local incidents he could recall in his youth were quite dateless adventures among the Indians, she gave it up. Why Mr. Ski should have interested her at all was difficult to say, unless it was the appeal to his uncertainty. He was at least a game fish, if not edible. Of the women she met, Susie and Vivian were far the most attractive, wherefore Mrs. St. Cloud, with subtle sympathy and engaging frankness, fairly cast Mr. Saunders in Susie's arms, and vice versa as opportunity occurred. Morton she rather snubbed, treated him as a mere boy, told tales of his childhood that were in no way complimentary, so that he fled from her. With Vivian she renewed her earlier influence to a great degree. With some inquiry and more intuition she discovered what it was that had chilled the girl's affection for her. "I don't wonder, my dear child," she said. "I never told you of that. I never speak of it to anyone. It was one of the—" she shivered slightly, "darkest griefs of a very dark time. He was a beautiful boy. I never dreamed—" The slow tears rose in her beautiful eyes till they shone like shimmering stars. "Heaven send no such tragedy may ever come into your life, dear." She reached a tender hand to clasp the girl's. "I am so glad of your happiness." Vivian was silent. As a matter of fact, she was not happy enough to honestly accept sympathy. Mrs. St. Cloud mistook her attitude, or seemed to. "I suppose you still blame me. Many people did. I often blame myself. One cannot be too careful. It's a terrible responsibility, Vivian, to have a man love you." The girl's face grew even more somber. That was one thing which was troubling her. "But your life is all before you," pursued the older woman. "Your dream has come true. How happy, how wonderfully happy you must be." "I am not really," said the girl. "At least—" I know, I understand," Mrs. St. Cloud nodded with tender wisdom. "You are not sure. Is not that it?" That was distinctly it, and Vivian so agreed. "There is no other man." "Not the shadow of one," said the girl firmly. And as her questioner had studied the field and made up her mind to the same end, she believed her. "Then you must not mind this sense of uncertainty. It always happens. It is part of the morning clouds of maidenhood, my dear. It vanishes with the sunrise." And she smiled beatifically. Then the girl unburdened herself of her perplexities. She could always express herself so easily to this sympathetic friend. "There are so many things that I dislike about him," she said. "Habits of speech, of manners. He is not what I—" She paused. "Not all the dream. Ah, my dear child, they never are. We are given these beautiful ideals to guard and guide us, but the real is never quite the same. But when a man's soul opens to you, when he loves, these small things vanish. They can be changed. You will change them." "Yes, he says so," Vivian admitted. "He says that he knows that he is unworthy and has done wrong things. But so have I, for that matter." Mrs. St. Cloud agreed with her. "I am glad you feel that, my dear. Men have their temptations, their vices, and we good women are apt to be hard on them. But have we no faults? Ah, my dear, I have seen good women, young girls like yourself, ruin a man's whole life by heartlessness, by lack of understanding. Most young men do things they become ashamed of when they really love. And in the case of a motherless boy like this, Lonely, away from his home, no good woman's influence about. What else could we expect? But you can make a new man of him, a glorious work." "That's what he says. I'm not so sure." The girl hesitated. "Not sure you can? Oh, my child, it is the most beautiful work on earth, to see from year to year a strong, noble character grow under your helping hand, to be the guiding star, the inspiration of a man's life, to live to hear him say, 'Ah, who am I that God should bow from heaven to choose a wife for me? What have I done he should endow my home with thee?'" There was a silence. Vivian's dark eyes shone with appreciation for the tender beauty of the lines, the lovely thought. Then she arose and walked nervously across the floor, returning presently. "Mrs. St. Cloud—" "Call me Adela, my dear." "Adela, dear Adela, you have been married. I have no mother. Tell me, ought not there to be more love? I'm fond of Morton, of course, and I do want to help him. But surely if I loved him, I should feel happier, more sure." "The first part of love is often very confusing, my dear. I'll tell you how it is. Just because you are a woman grown and feel your responsibilities, especially here, where you have so many men friends, you keep Morton at a distance. Then the external sort of cousinly affection you have for him rather blinds you to other feelings. But I have not forgotten, and I'm sure you have not, the memory of that hot, sweet night so long ago, the world swimming in summer moonlight and syringa sweetness, the stillness everywhere, and your first kiss." Vivian started to her feet. She moved to the window and stood a while, came back and kissed her friend warmly, and went away without another word. The lady betook herself to her toilette and spent some time on it, for there was one of Miss Peters' classes that night. Mrs. St. Cloud danced with many, but most with Mr. Dykman. No woman in the room had her swimming grace of motion, and yet, with all the throng of partners about her, she had time to see Susy's bright head bobbing about beneath Mr. Saunders' down-bent, happy face, and Vivian, with her eyes cast down, dancing with Morton, whose gaze never left her. He was attention itself. He brought her precisely the supper she liked, found her favorite corner to rest in, took her to sit on the broad piazza between dances, remained close to her, still talking earnestly, when all the outsiders had gone. Vivian found it hard to sleep that night. All that he had said of his new hope, new power, new courage, bore out Mrs. St. Cloud's bright promise of a new-built life. And some way, as she had listened and did not forbid, the touch of his hand, the pressure of his arm, grew warmer and brought back memories of that summer night so long ago. He had begged hard for a kiss before he left her, and she quite had to tear herself away, as Susy drifted in, also late, and Aunt Aurella said they must all go to bed right away. She was tired if they were not. She did look tired. This dance seemed somehow less agreeable to her than had others. She took off her new prettinesses and packed them away in a box in the lower drawer. "I'm an old fool," she said, "trying to dress up like a girl. I'm ashamed of myself." Quite possibly she did not sleep well either. Yet she had no roommate to keep her awake by babbling on, as Susy did to Vivian. Her discourse was first, last, and always about Jimmy Saunders. He had said this, he had looked that, he had done so, and what did Vivian think he meant? And wasn't he handsome, and so clever? Little Susy cuddled close and finally dropped off asleep, her arms around Vivian. But the older girl counted the hours, her head, or her heart, in a whirl. Morton elder was wakeful too, so much so that he arose with a whispered expletive, took his shoes in his hand, and let himself softly out for a tramp in the open. This was not the first of his love affairs, but with all his hot young heart he wished it was. He stood still, alone on the high stretches of moonlit mesa, and looked up at the measureless brilliant spaces above him. "I'll keep straight, if I can have her," he repeated under his breath. "I will! I will!" It had never occurred to him before to be ashamed of the various escapades of his youth. He had done no more than others, many others. None of the boys he associated with intended to do what was wrong. They were quite harsh in judgment of those who did, according to their standards. None of them had been made acquainted with the social or pathological results of their amusements, and the mere Zutritt ist verboten had never impressed them at all. But now the gentler influences of his childhood, even the narrow morality of Bainville, rose in pleasant colors in his mind. He wished he had saved his money instead of spending it faster than it came in. He wished he had kept out of poker and solo and bar rooms generally. He wished, in a dumb, shamed way, that he could come to her as clean as she was. But he threw his shoulders back and lifted his head determinedly. "I'll be good to her," he determined. "I'll make her a good husband." In the days that followed, his devotion was as constant as before, but more intelligent. His whole manner changed and softened. He began to read the books she liked, and to talk about them. He was gentler to everyone, more polite even to the waitresses, tender and thoughtful of his aunt and sister. Vivian began to feel a pride in him and in her influence, deepening as time passed. Mrs. Pettigrew, visiting the library on one of her frequent errands, was encountered there and devotedly escorted home by Mr. Ski. "That is a most fascinating young lady who has Mr. Dykeman's room. Don't you think so, ma'am?" quoth he. "I do not," said Mrs. Pettigrew. "Young? She's not so young as you are. Nothing like, never was." He threw back his head and laughed his queer laugh, which looked so uproarious and made so little noise. "She certainly is a charmer, whatever her age may be," he continued. "Glad you think so, Mr. Ski. It may be time you lost a fourth." "Lost a fourth? What in the Hesperides?" "If you can't guess what, you needn't ask me," said the lady with some tartness. "But for my own part, I prefer the Apaches. Good afternoon, Mr. Ski." She betook herself to her room with unusual promptness, and refused to be baited forth by any kind of offered amusement. "It's right thoughtful of Andy Dykeman, getting up this entertainment for Mrs. St. Cloud, isn't it, Mrs. Elder?" Thus Mr. Ski to Miss Orella a little later. "I don't think it is Mr. Dykeman's idea at all," she told him. "It's those boys over there. They are all wild about her, quite naturally." She gave a little short sigh. "If Dr. Hale were at home, I doubt if he would encourage it." "I'm pretty sure he wouldn't, ma'am. He's certainly down on the fair sex, even such a peacherino as this one. But with Andy now, it's different. He is a man of excellent judgment." "I guess all men's judgment is pretty much alike in some ways," said Miss Orella, oracularly. She seemed busy and constrained, and Mr. Ski drifted off and paid court as best he might to Dr. Belair. "Charmed to find you at home, ma'am," he said. "Or shall I say at office? Call it what you like, Mr. Ski. It's been my home for a good many years now." "It's a mighty fine thing for a woman, livin' alone, to have a business, seems to me," remarked the visitor. "It's a fine thing for any woman, married or single, to my mind," she answered. "I wish I could get Vivian Lane started in that kindergarten she talks about." "There's kids enough, and goodness knows they need a gardener. What's lacking? House room?" "She thinks she's not really competent. She has no regular certificate, you see. Her parents would never let go of her long enough," the doctor explained. "Some parents are pretty grasping, ain't they? To my mind, Miss Vivian would be a better teacher than lots of the ticketed ones. She's got the natural love of children." "Yes, and she has studied a great deal. She just needs an impetus." "Perhaps if she thought there was a call, she might be willing. I doubt if the families here realize what they're missing. Ain't there some among your patients who could be stirred up a little?" The doctor thought there were, and he suggested several names from his apparently unlimited acquaintance. I believe in occupation for the young. It takes up their minds," said Mr. Ski, and departed with serenity. He strolled over to Dr. Hale's fence and leaned upon it, watching the preparations. Mr. Dykeman, in his shirt-sleeves, stood about offering suggestions, while the young men swarmed here and there with poles and step-ladders, hanging Chinese lanterns. "Hello, Elmer! Come in and make yourself useful," called Mr. Dykeman. "I'll come in, but I'll be switched if I'll be useful," he replied, laying a large hand on the fence and vaulting his long legs over it with an agility amazing in one of his alleged years. "You all are sure putting yourself out for this occasion. Is it somebody's birthday?" "No, it's a get-up of these youngsters. They began by wanting Mrs. St. Cloud to come over to tea, afternoon tea. And now look at this." "Did she misunderstand the invitation as bad as that?" "Oh, no, just a gradual change of plan. One thing leads to another, you know. Here, Archie, that bush won't hold the line. Put it on the willow." "I see," said Mr. Ski, "and, as we're quoting Proverbs, I might remark that, while the cat's away, the mice will play." Mr. Dykeman smiled. "It's rather a good joke on Hale, isn't it?" "Would be, if he should happen to come home and find this hen party on." They both chuckled. "I guess he's good for a week yet," said Mr. Dykeman. "Those medical associations do a lot of talking. Higher up there, George, a good deal higher." He ran over to direct the boys, and Mr. Ski, hands behind him, strolled up and down the garden, wearing a meditative smile. He and Andrew Dykeman had been friends for many long years. Dr. Belair used her telephone freely after Mr. Ski's departure, making notes and lists of names. Late in the afternoon she found Vivian in the hall. "I don't see much of you these days, Miss Lane," she said. The girl flushed. Since Mrs. St. Cloud's coming and their renewed intimacy, she had rather avoided the doctor, and that lady had kept herself conspicuously out of the way. "Don't call me Miss Lane. I'm Vivian to my friends." "I hope you count me a friend," said Dr. Belair gravely. "I do, doctor, and I'm proud to. But so many things have been happening lately," she laughed, a little nervously. "The truth is, I'm really ashamed to talk to you. I'm so lazy." "That's exactly what I wanted to speak about. Aren't you ready to begin that little school of yours?" "I'd like to. I should, really," said the girl. "But somehow I don't know how to set about it." "I've been making some inquiries," said the doctor. "There are 6 or 8 among my patients that you could count on. About a dozen young ones. How many could you handle?" "Oh, I oughtn't to have more than 20 in any case. A dozen would be plenty to begin with. Do you think I could count on them, really?" "I tell you what I'll do," her friend offered. "I'll take you around and introduce you to any of them you don't know. Most of 'em come here to the dances. There's Mrs. Horsford and Mrs. Blake and that little Mary Jackson with the twins. You'll find they are mostly friends." "You are awfully kind," said the girl. "I wish," her voice took on a sudden note of intensity, "I do wish I were strong like you, Dr. Belair." "I wasn't very strong at your age, my child. I did the weakest of weak things." Vivian was eager to ask her what it was, but a door opened down one side passage, and the doctor quietly disappeared down the other as Mrs. St. Cloud came out. "I thought I heard your voice," she said. "And Miss Elders, wasn't it?" "No, it was Dr. Belair." "A strong character, and a fine physician, I understand. I'm sorry she does not like me." Mrs. St. Cloud's smile made it seem impossible that anyone should dislike her. Vivian could not, however, deny the fact, and was not diplomatic enough to smooth it over, which her more experienced friend proceeded to do. "It is temperamental," she said gently. "If we had gone to school together, we would not have been friends. She is strong, downright, progressive. I am weaker, more sensitive, better able to bear than to do. You must find her so stimulating." "Yes," the girl said. "She was talking to me about my school." "Your school?" "Didn't you know that I meant to have a sort of kindergarten? We planned it even before starting. but Miss Elder seemed to need me at first, and since then things have happened. And other things will happen, dear child, quite other and different things." The lady's smile was bewitching. Vivian flushed slowly under her gaze. "Oh, my dear, I watched you dancing together. You don't mind my noticing, do you?" Her voice was suddenly tender and respectful. "I do not wish to intrude, but you are very dear to me. Come into my room, do, and tell me what to wear tonight." Mrs. St. Cloud's clothes had always been a delight to Vivian. They were what she would have liked to wear, and never quite have dared under the New England fear of being too dressy. Her own beauty was kept trimly neat like a closed gentian. Her friend was in the gayest mood. She showed her a trunk full of delicate garments and gave her a glittering embroidered scarf, which the girl rapturously admired, but declared she would never have the courage to wear. "You shall wear it this very night," declared the lady. "Here, show me what you've got. You shall be as lovely as you are for once." So Vivian brought out her modest wardrobe, and the older woman chose a gown of white, insisted on shortening the sleeves to fairy wings of lace, draped the scarf about her white neck, raised the soft, close-bound hair to a regal crown, and put a shining star in it, and added a string of pearls on the white throat. "Look at yourself now, child," she said. Vivian looked in the long depths of Mr. Dykman's mirror. She knew that she had beauty, but had never seen herself so brilliantly attired. Erect, slender, graceful, the long lines of her young body draped in soft white, and her dark head, crowned and shining, poised on its white column, rising from the shimmering lace. Her color deepened as she looked, and added to the picture. "You shall wear it tonight. You shall," cried her admiring friend, "to please me, if no one else." Whether to please her or someone else, Vivian consented, the two arriving rather late at the garden party across the way. Mr. Dykman, looking very tall and fine in his evening clothes, was a cordial host, ably seconded by the eager boys about him. The place was certainly a credit to their efforts, the bare rooms being turned to bowers by vines and branches brought from the mountains and made fragrant by piled flowers. Lights glimmered through colored shades among the leaves, and on the dining table young Peters, who came from Connecticut, had rigged a fountain by means of some rubber tubing and an auger hole in the floor. This he had made before Mr. Dykman caught him, and vowed Dr. Hale would not mind. Mr. Peters' enjoyment of the evening, however, was a little dampened by his knowledge of the precarious nature of this arrangement. He danced attendance on Mrs. St. Cloud with the others, but wore a preoccupied expression, and stole in once or twice from the lit paths outside to make sure that all was running well. It was well, too, and during supper time, and the young man was complimented on his ingenuity. "Reminds me of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon," said Mr. Ski sentimentally. "Why?" asked Mrs. Pettigrew. "Oh, why, ma'am? How can a fellow say why?" he protested. "Because it is so efflorescent, I suppose. Reminds me of a loose faucet," said she, sotto voce, to Dr. Belair. Mr. Peters beamed triumphantly, but in the very hour of his glory, young Burns, hastening to get a cup of coffee for his fair one, tripped over the concealed pipe, and the fountain poured forth its contributions among the feet of the guests. This was a minor misadventure, however, hurting no one's feelings but Mr. Peters's, and Mrs. St. Cloud was so kind to him in consequence that he was envied by all the others. Mr. Dykman was attentive to his guests, old and young, but Mrs. Pettigrew had not her usual smile for him. Miss Urella declined to dance, alleging that she was too tired, and Dr. Belair somewhat dryly told him that he need not bother with her. He was hardly to be blamed if he turned repeatedly to Mrs. St. Cloud, whose tactful sweetness was always ready. She had her swarm of young admirers about her, yet never failed to find a place for her host, a smile and a word of understanding. Her eyes were everywhere. She watched Mr. Ski waltzing with the youngest, providing well-chosen refreshments for Miss Orella, gallantly escorting Grandma to see the lovers' lane they had made at the end of the garden. Its twin lines of light were all outside. Within was grateful shadow. Mrs. St. Cloud paced through this fragrant arbor with each and every one of the receiving party, uttering ever-fresh expressions of admiration and gratitude for their kind thoughtfulness, especially to Mr. Dykman. When she saw Susie and Mr. Saunders go in at the farther end, she constituted herself a sort of protective agency to keep everyone else out, holding them in play with various pleasant arts. And Vivian? When she arrived, there was a little gasp from Morton, who was waiting for her near the door. She was indeed a sight to make a lover's heart leap. He had then, as it were, surrounded her. Vainly did the others ask for dances. Morton had unblushingly filled out a card with his own name and substituted it for the one she handed him. She protested, but the music sounded, and he whirled her away before she could expostulate to any avail. His eyes spoke his admiration, and for once his tongue did not spoil the impression. Half laughing and half serious, she let him monopolize her, but quite drove him away when Mr. Dykman claimed his dance. "All filled up," said Morton for her, showing his card. "Mine was promised yesterday, was it not, Miss Lane?" said the big man, smiling. And she went with him. He took her about the garden later, gravely admiring and attentive, and when Susie fairly rushed into her arms, begging her to come and talk with her, he left them both in a small rose-crowned summer-house and went back to Mrs. St. Cloud. "Oh, Vivian, Vivian, what do you think?" Susie's face was buried on Vivian's shoulder. "I'm engaged!" Vivian held her close and kissed her soft hair. Her joyous excitement was contagious. "He's the nicest man in the world," breathed Susie, "and he loves me." "We all supposed he did. Didn't you know it before?" "Oh, yes, in a way, but, Vivian, he kissed me." "Well, child, have you never in all your little life been kissed before?" Susie lifted a rosy, tearful face for a moment. "Never, never, never," she said. "I thought I had, but I haven't. Oh, I am so happy." "What's up?" inquired Morton, appearing with a pink lantern in his hand, in impatient search for his adored one. "Susie, crying?" "No, I'm not," she said, and ran forthwith back to the house, whence Jimmy was bringing her ice cream. Vivian started to follow her. "Oh, no, Vivian, don't go. Wait." He dropped the lantern and took her hands. The paper cover flared up, showing her flushed cheeks and starry eyes. He stamped out the flame, and in the sudden darkness caught her in his arms. For a moment she allowed him, turning her head away. He kissed her white shoulder. "No, no, Morton, don't. You mustn't." She tried to withdraw herself, but he held her fast. She could feel the pounding of his heart. "Oh, Vivian, don't say no. You will marry me, won't you? Some day, when I'm more worthwhile. Say you will. Some day, if not now. I love you so. I need you so. Say yes, Vivian." He was breathing heavily. His arms held her motionless. She still kept her face turned from him. "Let me go, Morton. Let me go. You hurt me." "Say yes, dear, and I'll let you go for a little while." "Yes," said Vivian. The ground jarred beside them as a tall man jumped the hedge boundary. He stood a moment staring. "Well, is this my house or Coney Island?" they heard him say. And then Morton swore softly to himself as Vivian left him and came out. "Good evening, Dr. Hale," she said a little breathlessly. "We weren't expecting you so soon." "I should judge not," he answered. "What's up, anyhow?" "The boys and Mr. Dykman are giving a garden party for Mrs. St. Cloud." "For whom?" "For Adela St. Cloud. She is visiting us. Aren't you coming in?" "Not now," he said, and was gone without another word. End of chapter 8.